welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. Yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. All right, welcome back. I'm Indiana's own Dana Black. Welcome to Turn Left. Man, this is an exciting time because there are so many amazing candidates that are out here working their tails off for y'all, trying to earn your vote, trying to get everything and all their information out to you so that you know who they are and why you should support them. So I'm really excited about the guests that we have on because you know what? I was a one and done candidate. I did it once. I'm not doing it again. Y'all, welcome back to the show. David Sanders is running for state senate in District 23. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Absolutely. So the folks that don't know, tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Sure. So my name is David Sanders. I am an associate professor of biological sciences at Purdue University. I work on fun stuff like how viruses get into cells and research integrity, and I've worked on the Ebola virus.
Oh, my.
As a matter of fact, having worked on the Ebola virus even before 9/11, I was invited to participate in you have to have your seatbelt on for this, the United States Defense Threat Reduction Agency Biological Weapons Proliferation Prevention Program.
I needed a 3-point harness for that, bro. That wasn't just a seatbelt. What did you talk about?
So in that capacity, I was traveling to a formerly secret bioweapons lab in the middle of Siberia, where during the Soviet era, they were trying to turn Ebola and the closely related virus Marburg and Venezuelan equine encephalitis virus into biological weapons. And it's one of the only places on the planet, there are two that we know of, we have one and they have this one, where smallpox is stored. And we were working on trying to make sure not only that the viruses themselves don't go to what I was supposed to call, this is State Department speak, that they don't make it out to third nations. Third nations at the time meant Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, and subnational actors. Now, I always thought subnational actors were people who participated in regional theater.
Right.
But it means terrorists. That's State Department speak for terrorists. And the goal of the program was not only to prevent the viruses from making it out, and we know that terrorist organizations were trying to obtain them, but to try to prevent the expertise that's necessary to turn those viruses into biological weapons from, going somewhere else.
Yes.
So there was a whole program. I'm currently a West Lafayette city councilor. I've been city councilor for 10 years. And I am married. I have 3 boys, 2 grandchildren, and I've been a long-term resident of the state of Indiana.
So I got to ask, since you have so much invested in West Lafayette and in, the Purdue space, how you feeling about that national championship them IU Hoosiers got?
A lot of people have this Purdue IU thing going. I don't. I'm very thrilled that the Hoosiers won the national championship. I am a season ticket holder to the men's basketball.
Okay.
I also go to women's basketball games as well. That's the sport that I tend to enjoy. And certainly if Purdue is playing IU, I will cheer for Purdue. But I'm very happy about the success of the Hoosiers. And I think it brings great attention to the state.
I love it. I had to just pull that out because, I didn't go to either one of the schools. So really, I have no dog in the fight other than I live in Indiana. So I'm like you. My partner did graduate undergrad and law school there, but I didn't. So listen, yes, you've been on the council for 10 years. Now you are taking a giant leap. I think a giant leap. Most people probably would say no. You're taking a giant leap into our state house. Talk about some of the things that you have seen as a counselor that helped make the decision for you to run for a state senate.
Thank you for that opportunity. So one of the things that I have worked on, and I'm pretty well known for working on, is dealing with the LEAP Lebanon project. And there was an attempt to divert up to 100 million gallons of water a day from aquifers that were associated with the Wabash River. So I first learned about that in the summer of 2023. And when I heard it, I thought it was a terrible idea for multiple reasons. But when I discussed it with people, people were saying there's nothing really you can do as a city councilor, and it's a done deal. It's definitely going to happen. And so I sort of accepted that for a couple of months. And then as I thought about it more, I thought, no, I'm not going to accept it. I'm a pretty active city councilor, sponsor a fair amount of the legislation. And I thought, no, I'm going to take a stand. So I won't bore you with all the details, but at one city council meeting, I sort of dressed up as Jack Nicholson in the movie Chinatown, which was all about a water steal. And I expressed my objection to this project. And all of a sudden, I started getting 5, 6 emails, texts, phone calls a day. What can I do to stop this? What can I do to stop this? So I thought there's more to this than I realized. So I decided to sponsor a resolution in opposition to it. And I found a co-sponsor, and it passed unanimously. More emails, more phone calls. And some of those phone calls and emails were from people in other jurisdictions up and down the Wabash, and even included Bloomington, as it happens. There were 18 or 19 other jurisdictions.
Wow.
Democratic, Republican, didn't matter, who passed a version of our resolution. And I thought, well, there's a lot going on here. So I decided to form a organization called Stop the Water Steal.
Okay.
Little tongue in cheek. And and we worked with allies. And what this organization did was to unite people across the political spectrum in a way they haven't been united, specifically in Tippecanoe County, for decades.
Wow.
And we worked with other groups. There was a Facebook group. There was the We the People group. There was a group in Boone County. But it was Stop the Water Steal that really pushed it over the edge. And we stopped it. We were able to prevent the IEDC from building this pipeline that was already sort of on the books to divert the water. So we were successful. And what this says is a few things. One is that organizing at the grassroots level and truly organizing can have an effect. And I'm, one of the only candidates around who really is able to unite people across the political spectrum when we're talking about these common interests. And the second thing is that when people realize the local effects of environmental damage, they can be highly motivated to oppose it. And I have long been interested in environmental issues. That's really a part of the core of my political identity. And you can convey these issues to people in a way that will get them to participate, to defend the environment as well as their local interests.
I love that because that project is now impacting what happens down here in Marion County, because they want to take the water from our Eagle Creek Reservoir and divert it up. Now, see, my thing is, if you have to use that much and natural resource that you have to, you can't just turn on the tap to do what you need to do, but you've got to build pipelines and divert water from multiple places. To me, it sounds like maybe this ain't a great idea for the people. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of folk is like, we've not had a for real comprehensive environmental study on the impacts of these data centers. And if there have been, they haven't been disseminated out to us. As someone who works in that sciences space, can you help us understand a little bit about the environmental impact that the LEAP district and these data centers are going to have on folks in their everyday life? And I know this is not like a candidate question. This is a scientist question. So I'm gonna nerd out for a minute.
That's okay. One of the reasons I got involved in politics was to look at the intersection of science and society. I believe that most of the issues we face as a society have a scientific or technological basis. Now, I'm the first one to agree to the idea that they don't necessarily have a scientific or technological answer, but it's important to understand them, whether we're talking about healthcare or transportation or water issues or energy issues. You need to understand the science behind it. So I don't mind the science question. So a few things about that. Number one is this was incredibly bad planning because they decided to site the Leap Lebanon project in a place where there is no water. So there's a dispute among my colleagues, my allies. Did they know? And they thought, well, we'll just get the water from somewhere else. No one, we can just do it. No one will be paying any attention. Or did they just not think about it? So either one of them
sure which is worse.
And what's interesting in that respect is that the head of the IDC, the former head of the IDC, when he was asked about this issue of water and the aquifers that are associated with the Wabash, he said, as long as there's water in Lake Michigan, there will be, water for those, for the Wabash and the aquifers. The Wabash doesn't connect to Lake Michigan. So this is the level of thinking that we were dealing with. So in terms of, there were two issues here, of course, water and electrical energy, both of which feature into it. So when we're talking about the Leap Lebanon pipeline from Tippecanoe, it was going to have devastating environmental effects for two reasons. One is it was the transfer of a large amount of water from one watershed to another. Okay, so you were really removing water from a very large, ecologically important river and just taking it somewhere else. So that was a problem. The second thing was by taking up the water from the aquifers, it turns out that the aquifers are pretty close to where there was a toxic waste dumping ground back decades before. And by removing the water, you could be sucking those toxins into the aquifers and into farmland and so on and so forth. So that's that was really a terrible aspect of it. In terms of Eagle Creek, people from Eagle Creek have contacted me in particular. I assume they contacted others as well to find out how are we so successful, right? To a certain extent, there's a little amount of envy because the fact that the Leap couldn't get it from us meant that they were going to, try to look for it somewhere else from Eagle Creek. But I've discussed it with them and try to help them to advocate for themselves and to organize for this. So the amount of water that we're talking about is much greater than is used by all the consumers in these regions. So that's something we really need to take into account. And of course, when we have these data centers, they are going to be consuming a large amount of electricity, which is going to cost wherever you have these data centers created, you wind up with large increases to the electrical rates.
Yeah.
Consumers are paying as well. So for all those reasons, these are something that the local communities need to be concerned about. And, and I think that their voices need to be heard.
And I appreciate that because that's what advocacy looks like. Like you literally took, the street advocacy and made it policy advocacy. And those are the kind of skill sets that I feel like make for some of the best policy makers, because you can see what the people need in the street and then you're able to articulate it on paper in a policy type of situation. And the fact that you were successful, right? I bet they never saw you coming. And which means, Mr. Sanders, Councilman, they know you around. They know you are a force to be reckoned with. And although the Leap Center and the amount of resources that required was the reason for you to get yourself into this Senate race, since you're in it and you've now been talking to folks in the district, what kind of issues are you hearing from them, knowing that you're successful, right? You've been successful. What are they wanting you to work on when you make it to the State House?
So there is still concerns about data centers and carbon sequestration. Those
I'm sorry,
are
carbon.
sequestration. So
Okay,
that
you
is
gotta define that one for us.
okay. That's
That was too
right.
many. That was
So
too many syllables.
in essence, it is from industrial processes or the carbon dioxide is released, and so the idea is to pump it into the ground, and this is it's wrong for a number of reasons. The first one is that it isn't a fully developed technology and there are hazards associated with it. But the other is that it gives us the false impression that we can continue to generate vast amounts of greenhouse gases and not have any consequences
Right,
from them.
right.
So for both those reasons, and as it happens, that's actually both of these things are impacting District 23, especially the rural areas of District 23. And I'll just say that I'm not my campaign is dependent upon individual donors and people who are actually concerned about the district and about the future of Indiana. The campaign of who's likely to be, it's a whole long story, is likely to be the Republican candidate, is financed by PACs from those carbon sequestration
Interesting.
companies. So, and I'd love to tell you just a little bit about,
Sure.
if you haven't been following the Senate District 23 race, it was funded by about $3 million of attack ads.
Is this one of the districts where the Orange Menace went after the senator?
That is correct. So this was one. It's still only separated by 3 votes.
Oh, it's still ongoing. So they're still
Yes,
doing
it's
recounts.
still ongoing. They're having a recount, and there's a lot to be said about the race. But what concerned me was this was $3 million of. They were both lying about each other, and it's just flat out lying about each other. One example, quick example, a funny example is they were each calling each other a liberal. I know both these candidates personally. Neither one of them would qualify as a liberal in the contemporary sense of the use of that word. So it was. They were both lying about each other, and some of it was really quite vicious, and you couldn't escape it. You couldn't watch a YouTube video or turn on the TV without having one of these ads come on.
Wow.
And I would never campaign that way. That's simply not my approach. And you couldn't learn. People were voting against the other candidate. They weren't voting for a candidate. They were voting against the other person. And that's just not the way politics should be practiced.
Exactly. And that's interesting. So, you said you've been out there and they were talking about these carbon
sequestration. People are opposed to that, and
that thing you said,
CO2 pipelines and data centers. But people are also very concerned about access to healthcare, rural healthcare in particular. So there are a couple of challenges. One is that increasingly hospitals in rural areas are closing. You could, in some of these rural areas, you could be 45 minutes away from a hospital if you have a heart attack or you're about to deliver a child. And those 45 minutes, that's critical, right? I mean, we think about for heart attacks, if they don't get you, if you don't get treatment within half an hour, say, that's just a rough figure.
Right.
You're going to have much more severe consequences. And so we have the closing of those rural hospitals. And the other thing is that they don't really have great access to the internet and to phone service. When I travel in much of the district, my phone doesn't work. And all the time I'm talking to people in these rural areas and they say, oh, I have to go somewhere else in order to talk to you. I don't have access. And that's an important healthcare issue.
Right.
Because increasingly we're doing more and more by telehealth. And if you don't have access to the internet or good telephone service, you will be denied that thing. And that's increasingly important also for more elderly people. It turns out that in the rural areas, you frequently will have an older population on average. And so they're being denied. So these are the sorts of things. Of course, I always hear about the terrible states of the roads. And that's a complicated issue because some of the roads are not under state jurisdiction, right? And there are grants that can cover them and so on and so forth. But it's part of a larger issue about whether the state is willing to invest in infrastructure that actually helps Hoosiers, and this is the issue that we faced with LEAP and we face repeatedly, is the money going to be diverted to
build the Chicago Bears stadium?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, to build a Chicago Bears stadium, you mean?
Yeah, or large corporations like these. We're just giving away in terms of tax incentives to the data centers. I would, if you don't mind, I just want to talk about the Indiana Economic Development Corporation because they're the ones who are behind the LEAP project, who are working on the pipeline, who are paying for data centers. They have morphed, they have changed from their original goal, which was just to sort of recruit companies. Now they are a tax collecting group. They collect the taxes, what's called the incremental taxes from the things like LEAP Lebanon. They are a real estate company. They buy and sell real estate. And they are also giving away our money to large, including multinational or international corporations. Are giving away taxpayer money to those entities. And of course, we also know that the IEDC is engaged in self-dealing. I don't know if all of your listeners were aware about the Three Kings report in the Indianapolis Star, where it showed that three individuals were really they were involved with the IDC and they were directing money towards companies with which they were associated. The article describes the number of $180 million. It's really an eye-opening article. And it is my belief that the IEDC is just too corrupt to be fixed at this point, and it really needs to be abolished. But when we think about all of these different things that communities are objecting to, you can trace almost all of them back to the IEDC.
Wow, that's scary. I knew that the IEDC was a corrupt organization with, and mind you, they're not elected officials. I know, and they're appointed by the governor, and there's no oversight. And then there was an audit done, but the audit was never released, or they just said we did the audit. Like, well, what's the results of the audit? Like, I know Representative Delaney has been all over these clowns, but this is the thing, and I find it interesting. Like, yes. Our rural communities need hospitals. They need the things, they need the modern conveniences. How the heck? I remember Sue Epperson, I never can say her last name, when she was a lieutenant governor, her first initiative as lieutenant governor was to get high-speed internet in rural Indiana. And that was back in, was it 2016?
Yes.
When she first went into office, I think.
And those continues to be a problem. And I would say it's pretty simple. The supermajority has ignored and taken advantage of its rural constituents.
So when you're so you're a ivory tower guy, right? And you go to talk to these folks in rural Indiana. They hear that my goodness, I can tell a mile away that you're a super intelligent man. I can tell that your vocabulary is much more extensive than mine. And when you're going into spaces where folks are struggling, how are you able to connect with them, one? And two, how are you connecting the dots that, hey, who you've been voting for is the reason why you find yourself in this situation?
Well, the first thing I do is to ask them about their interests. What are they concerned about? and then I try to address that. But it's in the current environment, it's not difficult. People are struggling with the high cost of fuel.
Everything.
People are struggling with both obtaining access to healthcare and also affording healthcare. Bankruptcies due to medical debt are the major cause of bankruptcies. And we have that. That's true in Indiana as well. And that's something that needs to be confronted. We need affordable and accessible healthcare. And that's something that I am fully committed to, and I will do everything in my power to make sure people have it. And I talk to people will tell me about the difficulty they've had in obtaining healthcare, or the costs associated costs for their drugs, their pharmaceuticals as well. So those are the things that people tend to talk about. Now, the people also talk about the property tax disaster. That's something that I hear about all the time, and it's amazing that they would structure what was supposed to be a reform in such a way that the people who have the properties, which are not the high-end properties, are getting worse off than that. Almost all of the benefits of the SB1 and so on go to people who with expensive properties. The people at the bottom, and again, I could explain how the structure automatically creates that consequence. They're the ones who are paying more in their property taxes. The people who can least afford it are paying the most. So, and it's also, you hear it again, any sort of public official or school official will tell you about the challenges that it is creating for local communities. And so, I believe this is the time when people are looking for a change.
And I love that. And I love that we have all 25 Senate seats that are available that are up this year. We've filled. That is such an exciting moment. And we have 91 of the 100 House seats, which is, again, amazing, because I think you're right. The time is absolutely perfect for us to talk about how our policies are better for them than the ones that they've been voting for, that they're experiencing right now. Like, literally, you can touch it. When you go put the gas in the car and you see that it's $4.20, I saw that it was down to $3.47. I was like, oh my God, let's fill up. But when people can see that their groceries are going up and they see all these things, it's tangible. Now we just have to be able to talk to them. And I think that you're saying that you've kind of found that nice way to do that dance, because I got to tell you, we've been saying it as Democrats for a while. Right? We've been saying these policies are going to hurt you. Do you think because it just took a while for the policies to really kick in really badly? Or maybe was it because at the federal level, they had Biden to say it was all Biden's fault. Everything that was happening in Indiana, it was Biden's fault. Now you can't say it's Biden's fault, right? Do you think maybe that has something to do with it?
I do. I think sometimes they still try to say that, but more importantly is, again, a lot of these issues for my campaign, which I will mention, if you look at the numbers, this district and just a couple of others is the one that the numbers suggest is likely to be the closest in a race against an incumbent in the entire state. So there are, it's not 3 votes yet, but it is statistically one of the closer races. In my particular race, part of what is improving my ability to have these conversations is because of the success that we had with the water Stop the Water Steal and the continuing concerns about data centers and the IEDC and so on. And I have established myself as a leader in advocating for local community control.
Love it.
We have far too much state preemption in this state, and our home rule is continuously being eroded.
Yes.
And people are looking for someone, again, doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, are looking for someone who's going to stand up for the interests of the local community. And I'm not just somebody who talks about that. I've actually been able to achieve that.
And that's
again, with my allies.
And see, that's a fantastic pitch for a campaign, because one of the things I hope that candidates learn how to do, and obviously you know how to do it because you've been on council for 10 years, is to be able to articulate your vision. Like, it's one thing, I always believe that it is necessary to get input from your constituents about how you frame your campaign and what you care about, but there's still that vision that you have on, okay, well, they're telling me about the rural hospital situation. What is my vision? How do I articulate to them how I can help resolve that problem? And it sounds like, I guess as a professor, that's what you do. You come up with solutions to problems, right?
That's what we try.
Yeah, I love it. I got to ask you, what has been one of the things that you found different about running for the state Senate seat than when you're running and winning your council seat?
So in West Lafayette, in West Lafayette, people sort of know who I am. The hat helps. Mm-hmm. And but seriously, people will see me walking, a blocks away, and they'll know who I am. They'll come up, introduce themselves. And it's mostly because I have hats picked out by my wife, I must say. And so people around here know me. There were 6 counties in the district. There is only a tiny bit of Montgomery, about the western half of Tippecanoe, but then you have Park, Warren, Vermilion, and Fountain counties. They didn't know me as well. And so when I go around Tippecanoe County, I introduce myself always. I never assume that somebody actually knows me, but they say, oh, I know who you are. I've heard about it, blah, blah, blah. But when I go to those other places, they really do not know me. But when I mentioned Stop the Water Steal, we had signs like all over the state. People knew the threat that was being poised up and down the Wabash, which runs through the district, and they knew that their local jurisdictions were getting on board and opposing it. So that at least helps, but they didn't necessarily know about my association with it. So I really have to introduce myself, and I do a lot of door-to-door personally myself. I've been all over the district. I try to go to every single city of 300 people or more in the district. Those smaller cities, I can get to every single voter. Right. Larger places like West Lafayette can't necessarily get to every voter, but it's a different thing. And people have different concerns. In West Lafayette, I would say that public education is an extremely important issue. It's one of the reasons why people want to, in particular, live in this area. We have both good schools in West Lafayette and in the county as well. It is certainly an issue in rural areas. And one of the things that I always point out, and that people sort of realize, is that when we have a voucher system, it's the rural areas which are hardest hit by the diversion of those funds, because they don't even have access to these other schools. There just isn't the population for some charter schools or other private schools in these areas. So they don't even have that choice. Their schools are consolidating and so on. So they are the ones who are being hurt the most by that system. And they know it, but I don't know. It's of real importance in Tippecanoe County, and people understand that.
I love it. First of all, I want you to know that you have now validated that I am slightly intelligent. I'm slightly intelligent because you literally echoed everything that I've been saying for the last 2 years or more about vouchers and probably longer than that. I've probably been doing this show since 2017, and you echoed exactly. So I'm feeling pretty confident about my abilities today because the professor said exactly what I said. Poor rural Indiana, they don't have choice, and they're the ones that are suffering. And which I go a step further in my discussion and say they're not getting the same opportunities because they don't have the same resources, and that leads to more resentment. It leads to resentment in these communities. So when they see folk like me from Indianapolis, where there's a gazillion choices, and my kids have great opportunities, whether I agree with the charter schools or not, or whatever, they become resentful because America said, I'm supposed to be able to have these things, and I'm supposed to have a better life than my parents had. But those people over there, they're the ones that's getting it, and I'm not. Now, like I said, that's just me drawing that line. You can't tell me people see that they're not getting the same opportunities that other people are getting. They don't get resentful, and it breeds a whole nother set of problems.
I agree. I'll just give you one example from my academic perspective. West Lafayette, I don't know how many advanced placement classes they have, but they have them in, probably certainly most of the fields where they have exams. In these rural areas, they are hard pressed to have practically any of them. So it's public school education in the state of Indiana. And in those rural areas, they don't have access to the same sort of educational resources. And that's fundamentally unfair. And as you say, it potentially generates resentment because they are being denied public resources. These really, I believe one of the ways I phrase this is that public funds should be used to fund public education.
Absolutely.
And again, but there are these inequities built into that system, and I'm interested in reducing those inequities. I really want to make. I'm authentic about this. I really want to make the rural parts of Indiana a place where people will want to come back to, right? They grew up there. They'll go away somewhere else for college. Almost certainly, I want them to be thriving communities that people will want to return to be with their family, to be with the communities that they grew up with. And I don't think that that's currently the case for a variety of reasons.
No, I'm almost inclined to believe that the way that they write policies in that supermajority is to thin out these small towns so they can do the land grab and then do whatever they want without resistance because there's nobody there. That's what I think. And they're going to shove everybody into the cities, but then they're putting data centers, like they're trying to put a data center right in my community, in my council district. And this is a Democratic city. And it was the Democratic councilman that it's all right. I'm gonna let it go. I'm still mad at him. David, this was an amazing conversation. One, I feel smarter. That's always, you want your podcast to make you feel smarter. Tell the people where they can find you.
Sure. So my website is davidsandersindiana.com, all continuous, davidsandersindiana.com. I have a Facebook page for my campaign for State Senate District 23. I have an Instagram page. I also have an X account, which is David Sanders Rep. I have a Blue Sky account, and can be reached at any of those places. And I also have, I think it's worth mentioning, an Act Blue account. And as I mentioned, the Republican candidates seem to have unlimited resources at their disposal. I'm just dependent upon individual supporters. Now, I have had, some good money coming in from people who know me and people who identify with the approaches that I plan to take in the state Senate, but I can use as much financial assistance as I can get.
I love it. You know what? That's what I'm talking about. That's how we're going to close, with you making the ask. David Sanders running for State Senate District 23. Thank you for joining me on Turn Left. Listen, guys, the man made the ask. I didn't even have to do the pitch for him. Usually I have to pitch it for the candidate. This candidate knows what he's doing. He's run successful campaigns. He's run successful advocacy campaigns, not just political campaigns, advocacy campaigns, and he was able to accomplish something for his community. So this is the kind of person that we definitely need to send to our state Senate. And now that we know that he's running in one of those districts that the Orange Menace is trying to purchase, and they spent $3 million in a primary race, let's make sure that they don't think that they can coast for the general, that we can let them know, look, I hope you got enough money, because we're coming. We have a viable candidate. He's out here campaigning. So guys, David Sanders, Senate District 23, donate to his campaign. I feel like we have a good chance, and I love it when we can send more scientists to the State House, because the only science that's happening in there is none. There's none. I wanted to say there was something, but there's none. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Indiana's own Dana Black. Turn Left. I will holler at you next time. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions, executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by Dorian and 22 from Pixabay.